They didn't just command armies, they charged into the chaos, swords drawn, tanks roaring, or strategies so bold they rewrote history. These generals weren't just fearless. They were the storm that broke empires and turned the tide of wars. From ancient battlefields to modern warfare, here are the top 5 generals who ran toward the fire when others would have fled, each a legend forged in courage, cunning, and unrelenting will. 5. Georgy Zhukov, the Iron General. When the Nazi war machine rolled into the Soviet Union in 1941, it seemed unstoppable. Panzers crushed everything in their path, and millions perished. Enter Georgy Zhukov, the man who didn't just stop Hitler, he humiliated him. Known as the Iron General, Zhukov's sheer grit and tactical genius turned the tide of World War II. Born in 1896 to a peasant family, Zhukov clawed his way up the Soviet military ranks. By the time Operation Barbarossa hit, he was ready. At the Battle of Moscow, with the Red Army battered and the capital within Hitler's grasp, Zhukov refused to yield. He organized a counteroffensive in the brutal Russian winter, catching the Germans off guard. His troops, fueled by desperation and Zhukov's iron will, pushed the invaders back, marking the first major Nazi defeat. Zhukov's fearlessness wasn't just physical, he took on Stalin himself. When others cowered before the dictator's purges, Zhukov spoke his mind, risking execution. At Stalingrad, he orchestrated the encirclement of the German Sixth Army, trapping 300,000 soldiers in a frozen hell. By 1945, he was storming Berlin, his tanks grinding Nazi dreams into dust. Zhukov's motto, no retreat, no mercy. His legacy, saving the Soviet Union and proving that even the mightiest war machine could be broken by sheer determination. 4. Nguyen Giap, the master of the impossible. Nguyen Giap wasn't born into power or privilege. A schoolteacher turned revolutionary, he became the architect of Vietnam's improbable victories against global superpowers. Outgunned, outmanned, and facing impossible odds, Giap's brilliance and fearlessness made him a nightmare for colonial empires. In the 1940s, Giap took on the French at Dien Bien Phu. The French, with their superior firepower and fortified positions, thought that battle was a formality. Giap disagreed. He hauled artillery through jungles and mountains, piece by piece, under cover of night. When the battle began in 1954, his forces unleashed a barrage that shocked the French, leading to their surrender and the end of French colonial rule in Indochina. Giap was 43, commanding a ragtag army against a world power. And he won. Then came the Americans. The Vietnam War pitted Giap's guerrilla tactics against the might of the US military. His strategy was simple but brutal. Wear them down, strike where they're weak, and never give up. The Tet Offensive of 1968, a coordinated surprise attack on over 100 cities, stunned the US and shifted global opinion against the war. Though costly, it was a psychological masterstroke. Giap's men fought with machetes and AK-47s against helicopters and napalm, and they prevailed. His fearlessness wasn't in charging into gunfire, but in believing an underdog could topple giants, and proving it. 3. Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox. Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox, was a paradox. A German general so respected that even his enemies admired him. In the scorching sands of North Africa during World War II, Rommel turned tank warfare into an art form, leading from the front with a courage that bordered on reckless. Rommel's legend was born in 1941-42, commanding the Africa Corps. Outnumbered and undersupplied, he faced the British in a theater where mobility was everything. Rommel didn't just command from a tent, he rode in tanks, under enemy fire, directing lightning-fast maneuvers. At the Battle of Gazala, his bold flanking attacks crushed a larger British force, capturing 30,000 prisoners. His ability to read the battlefield and exploit weaknesses made him seem invincible. What set Rommel apart was his humanity. He defied Hitler's orders to execute captured commandos and treated prisoners with respect, earning grudging admiration from the Allies. Yet his fearlessness had a cost. In 1944, implicated in a plot against Hitler, he was forced to take his own life. Rommel's courage wasn't just in battle, it was in standing by his principles, even when it meant defying a tyrant. The Desert Fox remains a symbol of audacity and honor in the chaos of war. 2. George S. Patton, Old Blood and Guts. George S. Patton was a force of nature, Part warrior, part poet, all fire, nicknamed Old Blood and Guts. His men joked it was our blood, his guts. Patton was the American general who struck fear into the Axis and occasionally his own allies. He didn't just lead, he demanded victory, and he'd slap anyone, literally, who showed cowardice. Patton's fearlessness shone in World War II. At the Battle of the Bulge in 1944, when the Germans launched a desperate counteroffensive, Patton pulled off a miracle. He turned his Third Army 90 degrees in the dead of winter, marching 100 miles through snow and ice to relieve the besieged town of Bastogne in just 48 hours. It was a logistical nightmare, but Patton made it look easy, barking, "We're not here to hold ground, we're here to take it." His belief in reincarnation fueled his mystique. Patton claimed he'd fought in ancient battles, from Carthage to Agincourt, and his tactics reflected it. Aggressive, relentless, and unorthodox. He once drove his tanks so fast through France that supply lines couldn't keep up. His mantra, "Lead me, follow me, or get out of my way," wasn't just bravado, it was his life. Patton's controversies, like slapping shell-shocked soldiers, made him polarizing, but his courage was undeniable. He was a warrior born out of time, a general who lived for the fight. 1. Alexander the Great, the Unconquered. Topping this list is a name that needs no introduction, Alexander the Great. By age 33, he'd conquered half the known world, from Greece to India, without losing a single battle. His fearlessness wasn't just in strategy, it was in his blood. Alexander didn't command from the rear. He fought in the front lines, sword in hand, bleeding alongside his men. Born in 356 BCE in Macedon, Alexander inherited a small kingdom and a big dream. His father, Philip II, built a strong army, but Alexander turned it into a legend. At the Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BCE, facing a Persian army that outnumbered his 5-1, Alexander charged directly at Darius III's center, forcing the Persian king to flee. His men, inspired by his audacity, routed the enemy. This wasn't luck, it was Alexander's genius for reading the battlefield and exploiting weaknesses, combined with a courage that made him seem superhuman. Alexander's campaigns were relentless. He crossed deserts, scaled mountains, and fought in every terrain imaginable, from the snowy passes of the Hindu Kush to the jungles of India. At the Battle of Hydaspes, he faced war elephants, terrifying beasts his men had never seen, and still won. His secret? He inspired loyalty like no other. His soldiers followed him because he shared their hardships, ate their rations, and bled their blood. His death at 32 remains a mystery, fever, poison, or exhaustion. But his legacy is eternal. Alexander didn't just conquer lands, he conquered fear itself, proving that a man with vision and courage could reshape the world. Why they stand out? These generals weren't just fearless in battle, they redefined what courage means. Zhukov's iron resolve stopped a juggernaut. Giap's ingenuity toppled empires with nothing but will. Rommel's daring and honor made him a legend even in defeat. Patton's fiery passion drove his men to the impossible. And Alexander? He was the benchmark for greatness, a king who fought like a soldier and dreamed like a god. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to this channel for more content. Thank you.